Summer Sweetheart, Chapter 17. Alisa was little surprised, but Carl was finally willing to see her. When she knocked on the study door, there was no sense of reality at all. As soon as she stepped into the study, she heard a husky male voice sound before she could see what was inside. "Who is here at night?" The man standing by the desk said, "Master, it's the young lady." Only then did Alisa notice that on the chair behind the desk a broad man was sitting with his back to her. Looking from her direction, she can see the man's head protruding from the back of the chair and the arm resting on the armrest. He is a tall man. Is he Carl? Looking at Alisa every night, she calmly looked at her, mad. Smith. She just heard Carl call this name. He nodded and said no more. He was not a talkative person. At this moment, Carl, who was sitting with his back facing her, spoke. "Have you met Trevor?" Alisa was stunned for a moment, only to realize that he was talking to her. Although she had already known from Trevor that the relationship between the two father and son was not good, Carl directly called the name Trevor still surprised her. "I have seen him." Alisa didn't know what Carl asked her about, but she vaguely felt that Carl didn't intend to let her see his true face. "What did he say?" "We just chatted a little bit and talked about your business," Alisa said after a pause. "He cares about you very much." Those words of Trevor may have a certain purpose, but he must be concerned about Carl. She is little envious of him. He can have a father who loves him. Carl listened to her, but just sneered and said, "Listen to Luther, you get along well." When Alisa heard the word Luther, she became stiff and shook her head quickly. "I just saw him in the villa." Thinking that Carl, she was facing his back, would not see her and shook her head, she added, "We are not familiar." For some reason, she deliberately concealed that Luther was injured and stayed in her rental house for one night. "Is it?" The man's light and fluttering words made Alisa shudder and dare not speak anymore. Luther didn't really say something in front of Carl. "Okay, you go out." Carl's tone sounded a little impatient. Alisa couldn't see Carl's face, but she could feel the indifference that radiated from his thousands of miles away from such a distance. Half of the reason why she married into Adam's family was forced by Rachel, and the other half was due to the frustrating willingness. After marrying into Adam's house, she never thought that there would be a divorce day, so from the first day of marriage, she planned to be Carl's wife for the rest of her life. She bit her lip, took 2 steps forward, stood closer to Carl, summoned her courage, and said, "Carl, can you turn around?" He turned around and she could see his face. When she finished speaking, she felt that the room was suddenly filled with suffocating low air pressure. I don't mean anything else. I just think that I will be with you for a lifetime and we shall meet sooner or later. I really don't mind your physical condition." When Carl behind the chair heard her, he was also taken aback for a moment. He curled his lips slightly and his tone was full of malice and disgust. "But I mind if you look ugly." Chapter 18. Alisa was taken aback, then reached out and pushed the glasses on the bridge of her nose and responded blankly, "Oh." In her recognition, Carl originally hated her. Therefore, when Carl bluntly said that she was ugly, she did not feel angry or sad. "Nothing else, I will go out now." After Alisa finished speaking, when Carl didn't speak, she turned around and went out. With the door closed, Carl turned his chair and faced the direction of the door. Oh, this ugly woman is really unexpected. Since it was still early, Alisa didn't plan to sleep either. She sat down on the sofa in the hall and turned on the TV. There was an inexplicable excitement in her heart. Although Carl hated her, he was willing to see her and didn't embarrass her much. This alone is many times better than those at Hunt's family who don't know much about her feelings. After a while, a whistling sound suddenly behind her. Alisa turned her head and saw Luther approaching her lazily. She stared in shock. Why is he here? Carl looked at the shock in her eyes with satisfaction and raised her eyes slightly, revealing a light smile. Cousin, I haven't seen you for a long time. Don't you know me? She looked at Luther warily. What are you doing here? My mother is my cousin's aunt. I just stay at my cousin's house for a few days. Is there any problem? Carl spoke and approached Eliza. Luther lives in Carl's house, of course. There will be no problem. The problem is her. She can't take Luther's frivolousness to her as never happened. And now Carl is in the villa. She has no doubts with Luther's unscrupulous temperament. He will definitely do it. Something ridiculous happened and she can't handle it. Alisa didn't want to give him a chance to do ridiculous things, so she said perfunctorily, no. Then he stood up and walked upstairs with his head down. However, she still too underestimated the shamelessness of Luther. She didn't take 2 steps, she was grabbed by her wrist, and her thumb was rubbing ambiguously on her delicate wrist. He leaned over to match her height and said to her ear, I haven't eaten dinner yet. Does my cousin Beato look at me hungry? I'm still hurt. Too much happened at night and Alisa had almost forgotten the injury of Luther. Carl deliberately reached out and touched her head, his thin lips almost pressed against her ears. Come and help me make some food. I'll wait for you. Alisa stiffed and was about to push him away. She caught a glimpse of Smith, who didn't know when she came downstairs. She was shocked and her expression changed slightly. She flung away and flashed aside. Luther was not angry, with a smile on his face. Cousin, hurry up, I'm hungry. Seeing Carl's appearance at the side of the night, the corners of his mouth twitched and his head turned to the side. Carl raised his eyebrows and glanced at Smith. What's your expression? No. He just felt that what the boss did was not a man at all. He was so idle that he had to pretend to be a cousin and molested his wife. Is it some kind of taboo stimulation? In the next moment, he denied his idea. He has been with Carl for so many years and he has never seen any woman he has seen directly. Although the lady looks a bit unsatisfactory, the boss treats her unusually.